Section 17. Modern Dispute Scenarios in Real Estate Understanding Modern Real Estate Disputes. In the previous section, we explored the legal remedies available when a breach of contract occurs, including liquidated damages, monetary damages, rescission, and specific performance. While these remedies provide legal solutions, the reality of real estate practice is that disputes often arise before parties fully understand their legal options. Real estate transactions involve multiple parties, tight timelines, and significant financial commitments. When one party fails to perform their contractual obligations or disagreements arise regarding the interpretation of contract terms, disputes may develop quickly. These disputes commonly involve issues such as earnest money deposits, buyer defaults, seller defaults, and disagreements over how the contract should be enforced. Real estate professionals must approach these situations carefully. Proper documentation, clear communication, and adherence to contract procedures are essential in resolving disputes while protecting the interests of clients and maintaining compliance with professional standards. Earnest money disputes. One of the most common disputes in real estate transactions involves the earnest money deposit. Earnest money is typically provided by the buyer to demonstrate serious intent to complete the purchase and is held by an escrow agent or broker until the transaction closes or the contract is terminated. Problems arise when the transaction fails and the parties disagree about who is entitled to the earnest money. The buyer may argue that a contingency allowed them to cancel the contract and recover the deposit, while the seller may claim that the buyer breached the agreement and forfeited the funds as liquidated damages. In many cases, escrow agents are not permitted to release earnest money without written authorization from both parties or a court order. This often results in the funds remaining in escrow until the parties reach an agreement or the dispute is resolved through legal proceedings. Because earnest money disputes can escalate quickly, real estate professionals must ensure that cancellation procedures are clearly documented and that the contract terms governing earnest money are carefully reviewed. Buyer default scenarios. A buyer default occurs when the buyer fails to fulfill the obligations required under the purchase contract. The most common example involves a buyer who fails to complete the purchase of the property by the closing date. Buyer defaults may occur for several reasons, including inability to obtain financing, failure to deposit earnest money, or refusal to proceed with the transaction after contractual deadlines have passed. When a buyer defaults, the seller may have several legal options depending on the terms of the contract. In many residential purchase agreements, the seller may retain the earnest money as liquidated damages if the buyer fails to complete the purchase without a valid contractual excuse. In other cases, the seller may pursue additional legal remedies if the financial losses exceed the amount of the earnest money deposit. Understanding buyer default scenarios helps real estate professionals guide their clients through difficult situations while minimizing unnecessary legal conflict. Seller default scenarios. A seller default occurs when the seller fails to fulfill their contractual obligations under the purchase agreement. This may happen when a seller refuses to complete the transaction, fails to deliver clear title, or declines to transfer ownership after accepting a valid purchase offer. Seller defaults can create significant problems for buyers who have already invested time and money preparing for the purchase. Buyers may have completed inspections, arranged financing, or even sold their existing home in anticipation of the closing. When a seller defaults, the buyer may pursue remedies such as rescission, monetary damages, or specific performance, which may require the seller to complete the sale according to the contract terms. Because real property is considered unique, courts sometimes grant specific performance in real estate disputes when monetary damages are insufficient to compensate the buyer. Litigation versus mediation in real estate. When disputes cannot be resolved through negotiation, the parties may pursue formal dispute resolution processes, such as litigation or mediation. Litigation involves taking the dispute to court, where a judge or jury determines the outcome based on the evidence presented. While litigation provides a formal legal resolution, it can be expensive, time-consuming, and stressful for the parties involved. Mediation offers an alternative approach to resolving disputes. In mediation, a neutral third party helps facilitate negotiations between the parties in an attempt to reach a mutually acceptable resolution. Unlike a judge, the mediator does not impose a decision, but instead assists the parties in finding common ground. Many real estate contracts encourage or require mediation before litigation can occur. This approach promotes cooperative problem-solving and often results in faster and less expensive dispute resolution. Real estate professionals play an important role in helping clients understand these options and encouraging constructive solutions whenever possible. Online discussion. 1. Question: why do earnest money disputes occur so frequently in real estate transactions? Answer: earnest money disputes often occur when a transaction fails and the parties disagree about who is entitled to the deposit. Buyers may believe they canceled the contract properly under a contingency, while sellers may believe the buyer breached the agreement and forfeited the deposit. 2. Question: what are some common reasons a buyer might default on a real estate contract? Answer: buyer defaults may occur when the buyer cannot obtain financing, fails to deposit earnest money according to the contract terms, or refuses to complete the purchase by the closing date. 3. Question: why might mediation be preferred over litigation in real estate disputes? Answer: mediation is often faster, less expensive, and less adversarial than litigation. It allows the parties to negotiate a solution with the assistance of a neutral mediator rather than relying on a court decision.